Hi, and welcome to this week's Facebook Live session with TeamKinetic, where today we're going to be focusing on inviting volunteers. So as a quick introduction, obviously when volunteers come to you and they're interested in volunteering, as normal, you can direct them to your front page where you have a button appearing down here. It may not look exactly the same, but it will be in this location that they can click on and they can register as a volunteer. But what about if you want slightly more control over your volunteers? Well, that's why we've built this new invite function for administrators and providers. So skip over now to the administrators pages here. Sorry, I should say, as always, if you've got any questions throughout this video, or even after the video is finished, feel free to put them on Facebook in the comments section, and my colleagues will reply to them in good time. So what's the purpose of this invite function? Well, the main purpose is to give you that extra level of control. So rather than just directing them there and then wondering if they've actually registered and having to check through the list of your volunteers, you can actually send out an invite and track whether they've actually actioned it. So whether those volunteers have actually registered on the system. That's one of the main advantages. You've also got, obviously lessens the number of steps for them to register. So when a volunteer receives an invite email, they just click on the link and it lands them straight on the registration page, as opposed to landing on the front page and having to click on that button to then having to click on this button here to then get them through to the registration process. And finally, the other main advantage is the ability to upload CSV files. If I go down to invite volunteer now, probably make a bit more sense to you. So you can also, obviously you can put in their email addresses here, separated with a comma, or you can upload a CSV file, which is essentially an Excel file. So if you wanted to do that, so if you had 150 or 1,000 or whatever it is volunteers on an Excel spreadsheet, and all their email addresses were in column A, then you can save that as a CSV file within Excel, and then just upload it onto the system and click invite, and it will send out to all those volunteers. Now, if I show you how it works, then now, so if I put in, let's see, test volunteer 3 at mailinator.com. Okay, I'm going to send the invite out. Okay, then I go onto my inbox. As you can see, it comes up here. You've been invited to join our volunteer network. And it tells them here that you can register by clicking this. They click on the link and it'll take them through to the registration page. Okay. Now what you do is, if at the moment, when I go back to that system, I go back to the system here, refresh the page, I can see invited volunteers, and I can see that I've invited that volunteer, but as you can see, they've not registered yet. That's what I'm saying, so you can keep track of them. And you can even sit there and automatically send out, re-invite them if you want to by clicking this button here. So that's one of the main purposes of it, is speed of getting those emails sent out. It lessens the number of steps in order for them to register on the system, and most importantly, allows you to track those volunteers. It tends to be done usually when you have a brand new system where people want to invite a number of volunteers onto it. Or the second reason is if an event's taken place and you happen to end up with a list of a number of volunteers' email addresses, and you want to try and get them to fully engage with the system. That tends to be the second scenario I come across where people want to use it. In regards to the email they receive, so as you saw before, we sent an invite out to test volunteer 3, which you can see here at mailinator.com. This is what the text said within the email, and there's a link on there that they click on which lets them register. You can change the text of that email just by going to super admin options, down to customize emails. Right down at the bottom here, you've got the volunteer invite, which is the one we just received here, which shows the text as we saw it within the email. That's the text that's going to appear, so you could change the wording within there. You've also got one for the providers, which brings me on to the next phase. So not only can admins invite volunteers onto the system, but so can providers. Okay, now providers get, they also see all the benefits in regards to, go to provider page, they can monitor in the same way they can monitor who they've invited. So if I sent out invite volunteers, if I said one called test volunteer 4 at mailinator.com, I send out that invite there. So as normal, we can see that they've not registered yet, but I've sent the invite out. So I get all this benefit being able to re-invite them and seeing where if they have actually actioned it or not. But on top of that, if the volunteer, when they receive the email, the volunteer gets the choice to either register on the system afresh, or they can register and be linked to this particular provider. So for those who are not aware of it, by linking a volunteer through to the provider, it gives the provider an element of control. So basically the volunteer appears within the provider's search volunteers page, okay? Which means that the provider can directly add them onto one of their opportunities if they want to, and they can also communicate with them directly. But we give the volunteer that choice. So even though the provider is sending out an invite, the email the volunteer gets, let's see if I can go and get it for you now. So test volunteer 4, okay. It says register and linked to First Choice Sports, which is the name of the provider, okay? Or just register. So we're still giving them that choice. But by clicking on the top link here, then that automatically is going to give that provider an element of control, okay? So they, like I said, they can add them to opportunities, etc. So some really exciting and useful functions there. If you have any questions, like I say, feel free to put them on the comments section. We're happy to help out, and thank you for your time. Have a nice day.